Square Enix just hosted an enormous Final Fantasy XVI pre-release event where they showed off a bunch of trailers, gameplay footage, and a bunch of developer interviews. And not only that, but they just dropped a huge demo for everyone to play right now on PS5. The demo primarily showcases the first opening hours of Final Fantasy XVI, and the best part of it all is that all of your save data from this demo is transferable to the full game when it releases. So if you play the demo and you buy the full game, you don't have to start the full game from the very beginning. You can just hop right in where this demo leaves off, and I love that. I just got done playing through just about everything that this demo has to offer, and I am incredibly excited to tell you guys about my first impressions of Final Fantasy XVI. So without further ado, let's hop in. So I jotted down a handful of notes while playing the demo just so that I can kind of keep some sort of flow to this discussion, but realistically I just want this to kind of be freeform, off the dome, just my thoughts of the game. I want this to be a kind of candid conversation with you guys about how I felt about this game. And one of the first things I do want to say is I really haven't watched many of the trailers for Final Fantasy XVI. The last trailer that I've seen is the Ambition trailer, and I actually did a reaction of that trailer here on the channel that I can link right up here for you guys to go watch that. But other than that, Square Enix kind of has built a very poor reputation of themselves when it comes to their trailers. They're kind of known for showing off way too much of the game, spoiling a lot of stuff that I personally would have rather experienced than just playing the game myself instead of seeing it in a trailer beforehand. I don't know if that's exactly what they've done here with Final Fantasy XVI. I think I've actually read a few things here and there that they've actually been pretty good about that with this game in particular, but I've just been so hyped about Final Fantasy XVI. I personally just am not going to take any chances. We just got a demo like today. The game is coming out in less than 2 weeks. I can hold off on watching the trailers for a little bit. So if you guys have been wondering like, oh, why hasn't he talked about trailers and stuff like that? I'm not watching them because I just want to play this game as it is when it comes out. And another thing too, now that we have a bunch of trailers and we've now got a demo of the game to put our hands on, and we can actually play a huge portion of Final Fantasy XVI, I just don't really want to do a ton of comparisons to the previous Final Fantasy entries. And that's mainly for two reasons. One, I haven't finished the game. And two, it's just such a new experience for the franchise. It just kind of feels like it's a waste of conversation to go into all the many little differences that this game has compared to the rest of the series. However, having said that, let's talk about the demo for a second, and let's talk about this opening. I do want to make a quick comparison, and I'm not a hater of any of the Final Fantasy games. I really like Final Fantasy 15, but I could not help, once the intro, the opening of Final Fantasy 16 was over, all I could think about was just how much better of an introduction that was than Final Fantasy 15's introduction. I love Final Fantasy 15. I'm not a hater by any means. I'm not just a fanboy for Final Fantasy 16 either. But Final Fantasy 15 opens up with you and your boys pushing a car, and that's it. Final Fantasy 16 opens up with a straight up recreation of the Gandalf and Balrog falling scene from the Lord of the Rings, and that's how you speak to my heart. I tell you what, immediately jumping into the game, playing as one of the icons, one of these god creatures, fighting against another god creature, falling down this hole, and it's just, you don't know what's happening, you don't have context at all. It's crazy. It is such an engaging, such a gripping way to pull a reader, a player, a listener, whatever, into a story like this. The high action sequence that this starts with is fantastic. It's just so gripping. I loved it so much. I can't imagine a better way that this game could have started. And from that sequence, the demo proper starts. We get little tidbits about the story, tidbits about characters, the world, things like that. That's when we start moving into the demo itself. And I'll also say this prologue, because this is essentially just the opening to Final Fantasy XVI. This is the entire setup. Everything that you're playing here in the demo is set up for what the main meat and potatoes of Final Fantasy XVI is going to be. And it took me about 2.5 hours-ish to play through all of it, and that kind of sounds a little on the longer side. I did take a little bit of extra time to just play around with controls. I walked over to NPCs just to listen to whatever they had to say, talk to pretty much everyone as much as I could, like exhausted all of their dialogue that they had to give me, stuff like that, finding all of the little treasure and items that's kind of hidden around the world a little bit. I did pretty much everything that you could do in the game, so that prolonged the length a little bit to about 2.5 hours. But after you finish the main prologue portion of this demo, you then unlock what's called Iconic Challenge Mode. I believe that's what it's called. And I covered this on the channel a little while ago, but we did have some demo footage that was shown to the public a few months ago. This, I'm pretty sure, is that demo that was revealed to us a little while ago, but now we actually get to play it ourselves. I played it for about half an hour, but I skipped all the cutscenes because I just didn't want to be spoiled on anything. I didn't want any context. I didn't want any details as to what was going on in the world, because it doesn't take place immediately after the demo. It takes place like a few hours into the game, with some story beats kind of thrown in there. You get some cutscenes to what's going on during that portion of the game. I just didn't want to be spoiled on that stuff, so I really don't have anything to say as far as really what we got going on over there, other than just we got a really good look of what the gameplay progression is going to look like for Clive once he's leveled up a bit and he obtains a few more extra powers from other icons in the world. But again, let's go back to the main demo here and let's talk about the plot a little bit. And I just really like the plot. I think it's engaging. I think it's easy to follow. I think the game slowly kind of feeds you information in a way that is not so overbearing. You learn a lot of terminology, but all of that is kind of easily understandable, easily digestible. I really like the characters a lot as well, which we'll talk about more of them later. But overall, the plot itself, I'm a fan of, and I'm incredibly excited to see where this goes from here. After the huge icon fight, the game opens up with an older Clive branded with some sort of tattoo on the side of his face, sitting at a campfire with a group of other guys, and they are on some sort of mission. We get a handful of cutscenes involving some political intrigue, as well as a huge clash between Shiva and Titan, and you play the game as an older Clive, basically just running away from the enormous destruction and wreckage that these two titans are causing from fighting each other, and you're just trying to survive, and you're just trying to run away and escape all of this havoc that's happening around you, and it's really exciting. I liked that opening portion, and right from there we travel back. I think it's something like 13 years in the past. I could be getting that number wrong, but we go back into the past to when Clive is about 15 years old, training to become the shield for his brother Joshua. Shield is the terminology that they use to describe what is essentially the bodyguard for the prince, who is Joshua, Clive's younger brother. Joshua is the dominant of Phoenix. Phoenix is a god, an icon, and the dominant is basically a human vessel of that god. Basically, Joshua, at any point in time, can awaken this deity that's inside of him, the Phoenix, and transform into the Phoenix. And this is something that is unique to his bloodline. The Rosefield bloodline, they get that dominant passed down, and it, for right now in the story, it seems like it's kind of a random occurrence. You either could be born as the dominant, or you could not be born, depending on, I don't know, situations that we don't really have enough context yet in the story. We get a handful of cutscenes where Clive is kind of dealing with other people around him almost judging him or looking at him in a specific way, because even though he's the firstborn son of this family, he technically should have been born the dominant of Phoenix, but it skipped past him and instead his brother became the Phoenix. Became the dominant of Phoenix. So now he's kind of having to live with people looking at him at a certain way of like, hey, like maybe something's wrong with you because you weren't born this way and your brother was. Like, what's up with that, man? And one person in particular who is the most cynical towards Clive in this whole situation where his brother's the dominant and he's not, is both Clive and Joshua's mother. I'm blanking on her name right now, but the way that the developers, just in facial animations, just the way that she will look at characters, it is so unbelievably effective. You just immediately hate her the moment that she just looks at a character a certain way. The moment that she looks at Clive, the way that she does in this game, I could feel that they were really hard at work at just making that very subtle subtext of just her facial animations. It was unreal. It was perfect. It was exactly what I would want in a sort of a villain character like this. How they introduced her into the story, it was perfect. I loved it. We're then introduced to Clive and Joshua's dad, who's, I don't believe he's classified as the king. I think it's the Duke. He's the Duke of this area. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but he's big news. He's the big guy in this whole area that you live in. He's cool. And he loves his children equally, and he doesn't favor one over the other like how the mom does. He seems like he's reasonable. He's a straight and narrow kind of guy. He gives Clive instructions to go out and take care of some monsters that are kind of a threat to the surrounding area and to the city. So that's what you go out and do with a few extra party members as well. We'll talk about gameplay here in a little bit, but after all of that, you meet back up with your family and all of the knights and all this stuff, and you're having a celebration, and stuff is about to go down, and some spies come in and they just start killing people. It's kind of a massacre. Everyone just starts dying. You play the game a little bit as Joshua using his abilities that he has. This is really where the big crazy stuff of the demo starts to happen, and I love it. Clive and Joshua's dad gets murdered by some of these spies, and then that's whenever Joshua awakens the Phoenix inside of him, and then that's where it all happens, bro. The game is kind of intentional in making it a little ambiguous on how Ifrit is sort of introduced to this whole mix here, but Ifrit comes, and then that's whenever you play as Joshua again, but now as the Phoenix, and we go back to that intro portion where you're falling down the hole and you're fighting against Ifrit, and now you have all these other options as far as controlling the battle goes and stuff. It happens for a lot longer amount of time. The emotional weight is so heavy. Like, during the whole fight, everything that happens leading up to the fight, and the way that it concludes with just Clive just screaming like, stop, 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 like, that's my brother, please stop, like, don't kill him, all this stuff. I was actually getting very watery-eyed. I was getting kind of teary-eyed, and I think it's just a testament to how much of an emphasis this game is putting into its story. Like I said, I wanted to talk a great deal about the plot here because it's the best word that I can use is effective. It's putting a real effect on me and my heart and my mind. Just whenever I'm going through this game, I don't necessarily feel like these characters are just video game characters. I feel like they're people, and I care about the situation that they're going through. That whole entire situation, you've probably out there maybe have seen Attack on Titan. The way that very first episode of Attack on Titan introduces the world, introduces the character, kind of lays out a little bit of what the conflict is, and then boom, something crazy happens. You're just trying to understand what's going on, but really the only thing that you can latch onto is these characters that you've gotten to know. And then there's that whole scene, I won't spoil Attack on Titan, but that episode ends with such an emotional, impactful weight on the main character that even though you don't know them that well, you feel everything that they're feeling in that moment. You just feel anxiety. You just feel all the emotion. You feel anger. You feel sad. You want to see retribution. You're excited for the revenge plot that's about to happen, you know? And that is precisely how I felt after I finished the demo. Like with Attack on Titan, the only thing I wanted to do after finishing the episode was watch episode 2. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to see what happens next. That's exactly where I'm at right now, and I'm so mad that I have to wait like 2 extra weeks or whatever for this game to come out, because I'm just chomping at the bit right now. I am so excited to see where this goes. But now let's shift over to the gameplay a little bit, because this is now an action-based combat system. This is no longer turn-based. We were kind of already moving away from that with other entries in the series, especially something like Final Fantasy XV. We were moving away from turn-based combat and the party system and all that stuff. It's kind of implemented in different ways through some of these recent titles, but we are essentially done with turn-based combat now, and that's just kind of what a lot of Final Fantasy fans have to deal with now. And some people love it, some people hate it, some people are kind of indifferent about it. I personally don't really care what the genre of gameplay it's going to be in a Final Fantasy game, because I don't play Final Fantasy for the gameplay. I play Final Fantasy for the characters, the world building, the story, the music, things like that. These are the things that pull me into a Final Fantasy game, whether it be turn-based or action combat. It's all good to me. As long as I'm playing what is called a Final Fantasy game, I'm excited for it. I'm excited just to see what it has in store for me, because every Final Fantasy is unique and it's its own ride, all in its own regard. So that's not really a huge discussion point for me. I was just excited to play Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy, I played. It's also coming from the same gameplay direction from the guy who did the gameplay in Devil May Cry 5. I've never played Devil May Cry 5. I played 1 through 4. As far as I'm aware, it's not the same person. I could be kind of wrong on that. I don't know. But I know for sure the gameplay here is, especially visually, pretty reminiscent of something like Devil May Cry 5. So that's really the only thing I have to say on that. I enjoyed the gameplay training sequence once it goes back in time to that first time that you're seeing the 15-year-old Clive and you're in the middle of sparring and stuff. The way that the story and the gameplay kind of blend right there, I think it was pretty good. I think it was pretty effective. I liked doing that little section, and I think that it showed me exactly how to do the basic combat stuff in a pretty effective way, and I learned it. I don't think it's very confusing. Once you start adding other elements over time, it all kind of just flows together. You just learn as the game is introducing it to you, and it's not so slow like something like Final Fantasy XIII, where it takes you well over halfway into the game for you to actually be able to do everything that the game has to offer. It seems like everything is happening pretty fast, but not so fast that you're overwhelmed, if that makes sense. Especially if you jump into the iconic challenge where you have a few other items and abilities at your disposal. You're playing as the older Clive in that portion of the demo. That's really where the gameplay starts to expand, and that's pretty much the whole idea behind including that in the demo. It's just to kind of show you what could be as far as gameplay goes, and it's in depth. It's really intuitive, and I like it a lot. And one thing to note is I think that the basic mash square to do your normal attack and mash triangle to do your magic attack, that is easily the slowest aspect of the gameplay. The game wants you to use your abilities. It wants you to swap through different iconic abilities that you have. Just like Devil May Cry, the name of the game is combo chaining. You get rewarded for doing certain things, dodging at perfect times, executing a special attack while it's staggered, you know, like just doing everything that you can as far as just chaining those combos go. That's kind of what the game wants you to do, and that is really fun to do. Every single time that I chained a combo and I just got better at swapping to other icons and stuff like that, that's whenever the game really started feeling like fast-paced and really hectic and really chaotic in the best possible way. Many outlets in recent memory have described the gameplay kind of being more so like God of War, especially when it comes to its level design, and I think that that's actually a really accurate thing to say. Whenever you're exploring, whether it be a city, like a little town that you're in, or going to that first area where you're tasked to go kill the goblins and the Marlboro. I think it's just called a Malbur, or they call it something different here in Final Fantasy XVI, but that whole sequence, you're kind of just going from large room to large room to large room. It's not really open world, it's not hallways, it's big open level design. I'm a fan of it. I like it, especially whenever you're doing it in the style of an action RPG like this. I really can't think of a better pairing. It's just so different for the Final Fantasy series. But if it were called anything else, I don't think really anybody would have an issue with what's going on here. It's just the fact that it's a departure from what is traditional for the Final Fantasy series. But as an action adventure RPG, it's awesome. I love it. It's like, it's so fun to play and so fun to just go through. But also, I'm not gonna lie, there actually were moments of the demo where I was reminded that I was playing a Final Fantasy game. It would just be something like a chocobo would come on screen and I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing Final Fantasy. Or you hear Clive mention goblins and you see him for the first time, or you see the Marlboro enemy for the first time. It's just things like that, or you hear the victory fanfare, which is, it's so angelic. I love the victory fanfare whenever you finish battles and defeat bosses in this game. It is awesome. In saying that those moments are what reminded me, oh hey, I'm playing a Final Fantasy game, that's not a knock on what this game is at all. Everything that this game has to offer, as far as just video games go, is fantastic. And like I've been saying this entire video, I am so unbelievably pumped to just see where the game goes and to play and just continue to progress Clive as a character and gain all of the iconic abilities and stuff like that, and just grow as a character, grow as a player into this world. I love everything that this game is doing, whether or not it's called Final Fantasy or not. This is just a fantastic game that, just from playing the demo alone, I can absolutely say that it is a very, very strong contender for a game of the year. Just from a storytelling perspective alone, it's nothing like I've played in recent years. But guys, that's basically everything I've got for you as far as my thoughts, my first impressions of Final Fantasy XVI. I am most excited to hear what you guys are thinking about the game. Have you played the demo? Are you gonna play the demo? Are you just gonna wait until the game comes out, or are you still waiting to buy a PlayStation 5? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, go ahead and click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell as well so that you're notified whenever new videos like this come out. There's also a link to the Discord down there as well. I want to see all of you guys in there. I love talking to everybody out there in my Discord. I would love for you to join. Click the links in the description below to join the Discord. Also, yes, I am still working on my Final Fantasy kind of retrospective series that I've been doing. The next game that I will do in that series is Final Fantasy III. I've just kind of been taking a break for a little bit. The Final Fantasy XVI demo just came out. Final Fantasy XVI is literally like just a few days away, so that's going to be the main thing that I'm focusing on here in the near future. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom just came out recently, so I haven't been super working hard on everything that I want to work on for the channel as of recently, but that's going to change. I wanted to make this video just so that I could tell you guys my impressions of Final Fantasy XVI, because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. So just know, going forward, I am still definitely hard at work trying to, see where this channel is going to continue moving forward and other projects that I'm going to be working on in the future. But guys, like I said, that's going to do it for me. I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.